This webinar is designed to help parents understand the philosophy behind MAP tests and also to read the student progress report that you will be receiving at parents-teacher conferences this year. This is the first year that we have used the MAP test at ASM. The reason why we are using the MAP test is because the results are available to teachers within 24 hours. The questions are aligned to our curriculum. It provides data to compare with millions of other students all over the world, and you can measure student growth within 1 year. We have tested students between the grades 3 and 9, and we will test them. We have tested them in the fall, and we will also test them in the spring to see how much they've learned in the areas of math, reading, and language usage. Language usage means things like grammar, spelling, punctuation, and writing process, understanding when something needs to be edited or improved in some way, or identifying a beginning paragraph as opposed to a conclusion paragraph, those kinds of things. Another key piece of the MAP test is that they are untimed, so a student could feasibly spend 3 hours taking this test. None of our students did, but there were some students who took more time to take the test. Typically, the test will take about 1 hour. The other interesting thing about the MAP test is it's an adaptive test, and that means that basically the questions change according to how the child answers a question. So if a child gets a question right, the next question will be more difficult. If a child gets a question wrong, the next one will be easier. MAP tests generally have about 40 to 50 questions in them, and NIWA, the organization that produces MAP tests, says that asking about 40 to 50 questions will allow the computer to identify where the child is in their learning. And so what you get at the end of a MAP test is the students knowing what the student is ready to learn now. This is a typical question on a reading test in the elementary school. So the child has to read the information and then identify the piece that says that a bat is a mammal. And this is a typical question that the student might get in a math test in the upper school, assessing students' understanding of the difference between mean, median, mode, and range. You will see on the progress report a score that's called a RIT score, and RIT stands for Ready for Instruction Today. Because the MAP test is an adaptive test, students typically will only score about 50% on that test, because it's constantly fine-tuning the student's understanding to get to the point where they can say, this is what the child is ready to learn. So a typical RIT score for any child in grade 3 would be anything from 180 to 200. And by the time you're in high school, between the ages of grade 6 to grade 9, students will be scoring anything from 220 to 260. That, of course, will depend on the student themselves. But the RIT score provides us with a measure which we can compare from the elementary school all the way through 9th grade, so we can measure progress. So here, for example, you see a child who has a RIT score in reading of 195. That number demonstrates learning statements. So if you look here, any child who scores anything between 191 to 200 over here is ready to learn these things in characterization and their understanding of reading. So this helps the teacher understand exactly what the child needs to be learning in order to make progress. We recognize that in every class, every child is unique. Not all children will be scoring exactly the same score at a particular grade level. This is a typical classroom distribution where you have the majority that is sort of in the average band over here, and then you have outliers who are performing highly above expectations and and below expectations. This is typical, but the MAP test gives teachers information about how they can move their students forward. On the student progress report, you will see 3 coloured bars. The blue one is your child's individual RIT score. This child got 220 in the fall, this fall. The orange bar is the ASM mean RIT for this subject at this grade level. And the yellow bar is a comparison with students all over the world, the millions of other students who took this test. Further along, you will see a bar which is sort of blue and white dotted bar, and this bar indicates the predicted RIT growth that the child should make by May. So in this case, there's a predicted growth of 8 points. Underneath the bars, you will see reading goal performances, which breaks down the learning goals into smaller chunks. So, for example, with this child, you can see that in word meaning, they have scored at a high average level, whereas with informational concepts, as far as purpose, structure, and argument is concerned, the child has a lower average, and this, therefore, would become the goal area for this child to work on this year through May. The reading report also provides a Lexile level, so you can have a better understanding of the level of books that your child should be reading. In the top right-hand corner, you can see a percentile level, so you can see, in this case, that the child was in the 62nd percentile. So you can understand that 61% of students who took this test performed worse than this particular child, and 48% scored better than this particular child. And here we have the RIT score. So the one in bold is the score that the child got. But if the child were to take this test within a few weeks, the child could have got anything between a range of 219 to 225 on the test. So, as a parent, you may ask yourself, or you may respond to this report in a number of ways, anywhere along this continuum, really, from being delighted to being not delighted. And what we would like to say to you at ASM is, every child, no matter where they score on the test, everyone can improve. So we have to take the results of this test with a growth mindset and look at where your child can get better so that they can improve their learning over this year. We hope that was useful in understanding how to read the progress report that you've received this today. And if you have any questions, please contact your principal or me, Jane Segre, Director of Teaching and Learning.